You're live.
Good evening. My name is Damita Chatman, and I'm your host. Today we're doing the District 4. There was going to be a debate. Kenya Moore just sent a text and say she had an emergency, so she can't be here. So the ninth councilman will have the show to itself. I want to thank you guys for coming. This is very important. And so we got to make the right decision. Tonight, Councilman is my guest. I want everybody to respect my guest, because he's my guest tonight. And I want to thank the man of this house for allowing me to be in his house. I want to thank my moderator, Pastor Joe Flint. He'll be doing the moderating. We're not going to take any questions from the floor. We did that the first time, but this time the questions, I did all the questions. And the reason I did that, because this is the last go round. And I didn't want nobody to send a question to try to set up my guests. So nobody has those questions but me, and I just gave them to the pastor and gave them to the moderator. So again, I want to thank the councilman for coming. I'm gonna tell you, like I tell everybody else, just relax and let's get this thing going, and you're gonna be fine. I know you're gonna be fine. Joe, I'm gonna turn it over to Joe now. After this, we will be taking some pictures. Me and Joe, the moderator, and the councilman. And I tell everybody when we take these pictures, this is not endorsement. This is our pictures. So again, I want to thank you for coming out to hear the candidates. Joe.
Good evening again. Welcome to the District 4 Candidate Forum here with the organization C.E.E.L. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Joe Flynn. I am like a tribe called Quest, all one word, like a tribe called Quest. I'm going to be hosting this evening, and I want to thank Councilman Sebastian for joining us. And we're going to get right into it. Now, we're going to give you, Mr. Councilman, 2 minutes to introduce yourself and tell us a little about you and your platform. And in the fashion of our other forums, we're going to give you a minute and a half to answer all of the other questions. Of course, if you run on a little while, it's no issue. You don't have anybody here competing with you, but we want to make sure that we can get through all of the questions if we can tonight. Again, we want to thank both our viewing audience and our in-person audience for being here this evening. And we want to thank C.E.E.L. and of course, we want to thank Decision Point and Pastor McNary for allowing us to be here. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Councilman J.C. Sebastian.
Thank you, Reverend. And first of all, I just thank God that He has allowed me to be at this point. I just want to thank the shepherd of this house. Thank you, Mr. Leader. Obviously, it'll be supported by her husband, David. Known these two for many, many years. And thank you for all of the citizens. I know some of you, we made a long trip from the fantastic 4th District to come over here. So thank you for taking the time to drive here. About me, roughly about 20 years ago, I moved to this area from New York City, where I thought I was moving into the city of Fairburn. And like I'm sure a lot of you realize, you're not in the city of Fairburn, right? And so about a week after we moved into our home, we had our home painted, some kids, convertible, and we called the police, no one ever came. And so I did a little research then, and I found out we were in this thing called unincorporated Fulton County. And I was like, I've never heard of that concept before. Anyhow, long story short, sometime afterwards, I got a letter in my mailbox because I was just going to work with corporate, come back and taking care of my community, my church, and so on. And I was told to come to this meeting, which I attended at the Lakes and City Grove Clubhouse, to understand why our tax dollars weren't being spent here locally. And that meeting got me into the movement for cityhood. And that night, I met some stalwarts of the movement, people like Roger Bruce, Deborah Bazemore, Don Little James, Rodney Littles, and a few others. Sometime after I met Damita along the way. And so that night, I basically said, this is taxation without representation, and I went to work. So throughout that process, that took us a few years because the movement had failed a few times. I just went to work because I figured that being the largest area that was unincorporated with roughly 100,000 people, we deserve to have our own representation. And just like I would go down the street and sit in a restaurant and people know me now and come up to me and say, Councilmember such and such and such, that's what we were missing before. We didn't have people here watching the shop for us. And so that's basically a little bit about me in terms of the movement. I'm married, almost 33 years old with my beautiful wife, the most beautiful woman on the planet. I gotta say that, husbands, you better learn to say that about your wives. Okay. And I have 3 lovely children. Yes, Damita, that is Jonathan that just walked in before. So, and then there's Jeremy, and of course, Marissa, who I call one of the youngest founders of the movement, because Damita and others who are in this room know that she was right there along with me and others fighting to create the City of South Fulton. So that's a little bit about me. I didn't run for office the first time, even though people thought I should have, but they kept asking. So last time I ran, and I'm here, and I look forward to telling you a little bit about more of what I've done in the last 4 years or so.
Thank you so much, Councilman Sebastian. Ladies and gentlemen, the invitation was sent out to all of the candidates, but unfortunately, as been mentioned, Ms. Moore is not here, so we will remove her name tag at this time, and we'll get right into the questions. The councilman, I plan to ask them, and I want you to be as direct and candid as possible. I'm sure that our listening audience and our viewing audience would be very appreciative of you doing just that. And so I want to start here. How do you feel about putting a gas station in a residential community?
I am opposed to it, flat. I know we have the ordinance about distancing for gas stations and so on, but we have to really get to the point, as what we're doing now through our comprehensive development plan, of making sure the right things go in the right places. The problem that we have had over the years is even after adopting 2 comprehensive plans since the city has been formed, we haven't got it quite right. And so things like, gas station will end up in a place where people are trying to put things where they can purchase the land, because a lot of times that's the very first step. Land is available, where can I get some land? A developer approached me some time ago, just about 2 weeks ago, I believe. And he was going to suggest a gas station in a certain area. And, he spoke well about it, all the other things that he was trying to bring. Sounds nice. But the problem was, it was too close to a proposed roundabout. The area is already impacted by heavy traffic, even though legally we can't tell someone not to do development because of traffic. But it's a consideration. And also the area is zoned agriculture. And then you have some big homes with big properties very close to it. And I didn't think that that was quite right. So again, I believe we need service stations. We need to, in my estimation, we need better ones, right, than what we have now, but they have to go in the right places.
Thank you so very much. The city manager and the city attorney may be changed with a new mayor. How would you develop and maintain an effective, productive relationship with the city manager and the city attorney?
Well, the same as how I did with this current administration. It is not automatic that the city manager or the city attorney or even the clerk and the judge, those are the 4 people that the council have sort of direct influence in hiring and approving, right? And it's not automatic, but with every administration, you have to figure out how you could work with who you have to work with in terms of senior leadership. I personally think we have some work to do, but if you look at our history and where we have come just in the last 2.5 years, right, under Ms. Subadan's leadership as city manager, it is much, much better than when I got here. Because when I got here, honestly, it was a mess. And I can say that because it was. So regardless of the decision that is made once this election is over, I tell people I can work with just about anybody. You know? So, and I have tried and I've done that, and I've been pretty successful in the last 4 years. Because if you look at a lot of the things that I brought forward, my legislation and so on, they're all voted on unanimously. Because I don't bring things necessarily that are kind of controversial. They might be tough, but at the same time, sometimes you just have to talk to people and explain to folks why is it that you're doing what you're doing. And again, I believe in community engagement, and I don't believe in community engagement just at the point where you have to do a project. I believe that if you're going to come to the community and you want to make a proposal for something that's going to change people's lives, then don't just stick to the letter of the law. You go out into the community and you talk to people and you get their buy-in before you start to the formal process. I believe in that piece very highly.
Thank you so very much. Our next question for you is, as a member of the 7 members of the City Council, each with equal power, what approach would you use to make decisions?
Again, it's about building coalition, and it's about talking to your colleagues. I talk to every one of my colleagues on council about business. And if there's something that's controversial going on in someone else's district, I would call, I would have a conversation. I would even go and visit the site in another district so that I can get eyes on it, because I like to look at an area. If somebody comes and show you something on a map, right, and you don't either remember or you don't go in the area to see how the residents operate, what else is around it, then you can make a decision as you can make a vote that may not be in the best interest of everyone involved, right? So I've always had dialogue. I believe in dialogues, and I've always had an open door with every one of my colleagues right now on council, and that's not going to change, because that's who I am by nature. So that's not going to change.
Thank you so very much for that. The next question to you is that the constituents want the area to be kept rural. How do you feel about that?
I agree, but to a point. We have this thing happening in our city where the constituents are saying, we need this and we need that, right? We need services. And so we have a large city, and the characteristics of certain areas of the city is very different. Take District 4, for example, and you always see this reflected in our upcoming comprehensive plan. If you all haven't gone online yet and look at this or haven't attended any meetings, please do. An area like District 4, we have the largest district geographically, and we have the most population, but we have the least services and amenities out there. So while we want to keep it rural, and I'm proposing an expansion of our agricultural overlay to bring it from across Cascade Palmetto towards Chattahoochee Hills, even further towards areas like On Road and City Road and Bethlehem and those areas. Because we need to conserve some of these areas, but in places where we need to bring amenities, we need to put them, especially on the state roads, and we need to put the densities there on the state route so that people can get transportation-wise in and out very easily, and other folks can access those services. So it's not keep it rural only or urbanize everywhere. It's a little bit of both, but the strategy has to be, where do you develop, where do you put what, and to make sure that you work with your state partners, your federal partners, to get resources, infrastructure improvement, and the county to do stuff like getting sewer. Because part of the strategy with sewer could be, we're not going to put any sewer out here because we don't want development out here, right? And then in other areas where we need the development, we then have to talk to our Fulton County partners to try and get development where we need to get development.
So in staying in that same vein, what do you think about the rezoning of agricultural land?
So the issue with the agricultural land, again, I go back to the comprehensive plan and the future land use mapping, because a lot of the land in the city of South Fulton was automatically just put on the AG. Okay, so we're having this issue where when a development is deserving of getting approved, it might be zoned agriculture, when really and truly it should not be agriculture. And if you guys remember this case, there was a case in District 4 where they were trying to open a daycare center. And the land next door was zoned agriculture. The area called to the future land use map was agriculture. but there's no agriculture around there, nor will there be agriculture there in the future, right? And all they were trying to do was to bring a daycare there, something that's not going to have a heavy impact on the rest of the land and the land use. But we ended up having this big fight over it. If the map was done correctly, right, we would not have had this problem at all. So doing that future land use map correctly and getting this comprehensive plan put together well is going to be the things that save us all these fights over zoning. Because if when developers come after we adopt this with your feedback, what's going to happen is that they'll say, I want to build a supermarket. We said, okay, we got you. This is where you have the development for supermarket can go, or here, or here, or here. Those are your choices, right? So unless there's some other circumstances that would dictate us having to go and take some agriculture land and rezoning, that would be the end of that after we adopt this future land use map and comprehensive plan.
Thank you so very much. My next question is focused on data centers. What are your thoughts about data centers?
You know, I have two phones here, and we also have all of these streaming TVs and computers and all that. We have a lot of devices now that use data centers. So they are a necessary evil. The problem is when they end up in the wrong places. So for us in the city of South Fulton, I think we have 2 data centers coming, and a third one was straddled the borders between Union City and City of South Fulton. And that's the one in Stone Hotel. And that one was kind of underway before they realized some of the land was in the City of South Fulton. So by the time they came to us to the table, it was like, okay, we have to figure out how to adapt this here. But really and truly, we could not have said no. And that was a development that triggered this movement a couple of years ago to have the Georgia State Legislature pass this law that was going to allow the cities around us to take our land. If you guys remember that, right? And so some of us had to go and work and fight to defend that. But once all that was over, we found out that that was the cause of the whole thing, because they then wanted to say, okay, since the city of South Fulton is going to fight us over data center, we'll go under the dome, we'll use our friends, and we'll be able to come and take the land at our will. Anyhow, again, State Representative Roger Bruce, the father of the city, went to work, as well as Lydia Glaze, Don Zeller, Senator Halpern, and some of the others. Went to work and they worked with us. Some of us went down to the dome and lobbied, and we were able to stop it. Data centers also came in under our industrial zone. So the first 2 came under our industrial zoning category, and there was nothing we could do about it. Well, once we found out that was happening, I believe if no one has adopted this yet, we might be the only city in Georgia that now has a special use permit process for data centers. So if you come to the city of South Fulton now and you say you want to do a data center, you're going to go through a whole lot of stuff and having to come before mayor and council and have a hearing and all that sort of stuff. And if we even consider it, there's going to be a lot of negotiations done so that 1, it's in the right place. Number 2, you're going to have to negotiate a lot of community benefits, right? And then we will be able to have conversations about how are you going to have your transmission lines for your power? What kind of water are you going to use? For instance, one of the data centers, I believe, on Stone Hotel, one of the things that was negotiated was they may be using a recycled water system. So rather than being on the water lines every single day, they would draw a certain amount of water into their system. The water gets circulated and used to cool the system. Then they cool the water back down and push it back in, right, to help with the cooling. The other thing I learned recently from meetings with Georgia Power and Greystone is that they have direct transmission lines to data centers. So they're not on the same grid as your home and your church. They have a direct big power lines straight to their center. So there's, all the talk about the data centers sucking power from your house and so on and so forth. From what they've explained to me, right? That's not how it works. And again, you guys can call Greystone or Georgia Power and have this conversation with yourselves. Yeah.
Thank you so very much. Will you support removing the millage cap?
No, because it's not needed anymore. Okay. We, as I said in another interview, we threw a hearing. And just let me say this about the millage rate cap. Back in 2023, I fought to reduce the millage rate in this city. I started on this road by myself, and in the end, the entire council voted to approve the millage rate, lowering the millage rate. We cut the millage rate by $0.5 back in 2023. We haven't raised our millage rate since then, okay? The millage rate cap is a protection that was given to several cities that were formed after 2006. It was to protect citizens from being gouged with city taxes, right? And the city of South Fulton, where we are right now, we don't need to raise any taxes. We are doing fine. This is why, if you were at the town hall meeting I had with the city manager a couple of weeks ago, in the last year, we made $17 million alone on interest rate. Okay? We just passed the budget for $431 million. We don't need to raise any millage rate in the city of South Fulton. What we needed to do, just like when you were going to a bank and you try to get your credit score up and make sure the bank know you can financially afford to pay back the loan that you're getting. That's what the banks were requiring of us, to say, if you need to raise your millage rates in the future, at least you would have the ability to do so. But we went back and we negotiated and we got the loan, and that was as a result of the good financial health of the city, right? And I've said this publicly before, and staff knows this. I'm one of those anti-tax people. I don't like to raise taxes. I think as we build out our business base in the city, we should be able to cut our millage rate even further, because we'll now be getting more money from the businesses, right? Not only that, we have more people coming to our city. So that means more people to share the burden, right? So we should be able to cut the millage rate a little more. Now, having said that, that's my desire. But you also have to keep into consideration, we're doing all of this stuff. We're building all these things. We're building the public safety facilities and so on. So at the end of it, every time we go into the budget season, we need to look at the millage rate and we need to determine, do we have enough money here, or can we afford to give the citizens a break? You know, I would always lean towards giving the citizens a break, because I believe as your value go up, and your values are going to go up because the city is getting better. As the values go up, your rate should come down. So I don't think the rate should continue to go up and your value go up and your rate remain the same, because that means more money out of your pocket, right? If your home is worth $200 and you're paying 10%, that's $20. But all of a sudden your home is now worth $400, you're now paying $40. And my philosophy is, well, do we need more money? Can we find some sweet spot between the 20 and the 40, right? If we're not leaving it at 20, can we find some sweet spot between the 20 and the 40 so that we can cut that rate so that you're not paying $40 out of your pocket?
Thank you so very much. Next question is, do you understand that members of the city council must complete annual financial disclosures that becomes public information?
I do understand, and I'm very diligent in doing it. That's my short answer. Yeah.
Fantastic. Members of the city council are frequently criticized in the public and in a public way. You know this, you've seen where the city and the council has been, viewed in a negative way. If you are the subject of public criticism, please share with us how you would deal with and or respond to this criticism.
Well, like I've been doing quite recently, for example, folks have been saying, oh, I've been putting data centers and warehouses on South Fulton Park in District 4. So I wrote an article in my newsletter and I provided some evidence to say, hey, there's not a single warehouse, data center, or apartment building in District 4. Quite frankly, some of these things were built even before I was on the council, and they were built in another jurisdiction, right? So every now and then I would write an article and I would publish it. There was something has been said about my use of something on a P card, and I wrote another letter from my office, and I basically said, first of all, it's not even a P card change. It was done by staff through a requisition process, right? Because people like to use this P card thing as a trigger, right? And I remind people all the time, we get about $120,000 budget, which include our salaries, the staff salary for our assistants, and our travel, training, all the rest of the stuff that we do. And in 4 years, I've given back into the general fund over $120,000. So being here in 4 years, I've used basically 3 years budget, right? And because, I'm one of those people, I don't travel a lot and I'm frugal and I like to spend the money on helping people, feeding people and provide things to people in the community that needs it. And so, bottom line is sometimes we take criticism that is a little bit unfair, but do I understand? Yes, because sometimes the public image doesn't look good that comes across from a council. And a lot of times I try to stay calm and, try and bring peace. But, 1 or 2 times I have to put in a little thing because, sometimes if you get too quiet and you never say anything, people want to take advantage of you, right? And so sometimes I have to remind people I'm a duly elected official of District 4 in the City of South Fulton, and you need to respect me for it.
Bottom line.
Mhm.
Next question is, do you think that the communities with dirt roads should keep them?
Where they're able to, I think so. We actually have the most dirt road out in District 4. And I see a couple of folks in here from the Hall Road and City of Jones here. Those 2 roads have been heavily impacted, again, by school traffic and by the high density development that have been done by Union City on our borders. And this past summer, we had some meetings to discuss those 2 roads. And I've frequently told the residents that I will work with them for as much as possible to keep those roads the way that they want, because they bought in those areas for a reason. But the problem is with the density that has been brought there by another jurisdiction and with the school board traffic, Lansing Hughes cluster got about 1,000 kids redistricted to it last school year, and it's still growing. So the traffic there is horrendous. So we're working with GDOT to not only bring those roundabouts at Jones Road and to Mooney, but also the city must now make the decision while working with the community. We had these meetings this summer of at least paving Jones Road all the way to City Road. If you drive through there, it's partly paved in Union City, and then it goes back to dirt in the City of South Fulton. And we have to pave it too, because it's going to help us relieve the traffic for the school and the high density stuff, right? And hopefully we can buy some time and not touch Hall Road for a while. That's my hope. But other areas where we have dirt roads, we have instituted a program for maintenance. So even Hall Road is better kept. A few years ago, it became impossible, right? Just the system that we had when we had to do purchase order, it was just taking too long. That's why we eventually raised the cap on what the city manager could spend. Because back then, you could not do work on Jones Road for less than $25,000. And when it rained and the place was just getting bad, and the school buses come through on this sort of road, we were having to wait months before we could get a purchase order and get a contract. So we changed all that. So it's much better now on other roads around the district where we're having a regular maintenance program for those roads. So again, as much as people can safely navigate those roads, right? And I encourage people who live on those type of roads, please report them whenever there are issues. But we've had a good program going now since we've made some changes last couple of years.
Thank you so very much. How can you bring unity with the council leaders if you are reelected?
I can try, but you know what? We're all adults. And I say this all the time. And you know who's responsible for help fixing the council? You guys are, right? And so for me, I am hoping that I've represented my district well, and that I've been enough of a go-between and negotiator, a people calmer, to bring where I can a little bit of peace sometimes in areas where there's tension, because this work is not easy. I'm telling you, because you think about people, the public are asking for things here, then somebody is asking for the opposite from over here. Then you have people who want to spend money city elected here, and then you have staff with city council and so on in the middle. And so we always have to be trying to find this good balance where you either get most people happy, right? Or everyone's happy. And that's not easy to do at all. But I think in terms of at least what I've done, I think most people have been happy with the things that we have done in District 4 in the last 3.5, almost 4 years and how they've been done.
Thank you so very much for that response. I want to ask you, in addition to regular meetings on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month, members of the City Council share responsibilities of representing the city at various local, regional, county, and state meetings, as well as events. Typically, this can require attending daytime, evening, and weekend meetings. Are you available to take these additional responsibilities beyond the regular city meetings?
Oh, absolutely. And I've been doing that. I had a meeting at City Hall this morning, and our city manager, she had a couple of meetings before. She was a little late. And, I was joking with her because she was like, I've been working since 9 o'clock this morning. I had back-to-back meetings. And I was like, well, I was having meetings on the weekends. But that's just what we do. People, this part-time job, it is not a part-time job. It is not even a full-time job. It is more than a full-time job. My wife would say, they don't hear when people are calling you on the weekends and at night saying things like, and I need some food, or you have any, right? Or I have a problem with this or a problem with that. 2 Sundays ago, I was at a farmer's farm, and she was expressing to me how that spray that Greystone was using to clear the right of way was having this impact on not only her agricultural stuff, but on her chickens. I took pictures, I sent them to the Greystone contact that I have, and he called me a couple of days ago. He said, Council member, we are not going to be spraying anymore. This, I complained already months ago. I told staff, please ask Greystone not to spray in District 4 anymore. We have animals, we have wells, we have farms out here. We don't know what this chemical is doing to our farms and our health. And a couple of people complained, Hall Road, Herndon Road, Hopwood Road, Ridge Road. And so the case with the farmer was really the last straw for me, because at that point I was like, I'm not waiting more. I am going to the people in Greystone myself, right? And so I was happy to learn this week, and I'll be sharing information when they send me the official. That not only are they going to stop this spraying, but they will be hopefully using their insurance to compensate at least this fall.
There it is. My next question to you is, how do you feel about changing Clintondale and Cedar Grove's overlay?
Changing the overlay depends on what you mean, what changes are being proposed. Now, I believe these overlays are probably about 50 years, if I'm not mistaken, right? And so we have to look at them under this new paradigm that we have, the way our development is being done. And I mentioned about the agricultural overlay before in District 4 that existed on one side of Cascade Palmetto. If you go into towards Palmetto, it's that little piece on our right. I said a little piece, but it's actually hundreds of acres. But we have to take a look, and I've asked staff through this comprehensive plan process to take a look at these overlays and let us figure out how we can improve these overlays, because it's almost like trying to build in the modern times under the rules of 50, 60 years ago. And it's very difficult to do that.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we had anticipated that we were going to have 2 candidates here, which would have allowed us to spend more time back and forth. But because we only have 1 candidate, we're going to, at this time, open the floor for questions from the audience. Now, we're not going to go over top, but Damita is going to give us some additional instruction.
Thank you. I made the decision, so if anybody get mad, they get mad with me. That's why I'm glad I'm the boss of C.E.E.L. I asked the councilman to relax, and did he relax? Because he answered all 14 of them questions.
That name, see, like.
It was 14. He answered 13 and we got one more. But when I thought of these questions, I said that was gonna take us up to 8 o'clock. So what I'm gonna do is, a gentleman came in and asked could he do a question? And I'm gonna open it up for a few questions. I'm gonna say, I don't want these questions to be personal. Stick to why we're here for the City of South Fulton. And if they get personal, then I'm gonna stop it. But the gentleman right there, you can come up and ask your question. And then I got Miss Thomas. Mama, you don't be scared of me. And you can ask your question.
Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna ask a question. I'm sorry about that. I'm gonna ask a question to both candidates regarding the specific initiative that they led on the council or HOA, if they were on the one that solves real problems, improves quality of life for your neighbors. How did you lead it, and what concrete results can residents point to today?
Thank you for that question, Wayne. Well, first of all, go to jc4.com. That's JACEEYFOR, the number 4.com, and go to the accomplishments page. And you will see a lot of things about me there, not only from my city council role in the last almost 4 years. Things that I'm proud of. When I was running for office the first time, citizens told me all the time, nothing happens in District 4. We don't feel anything out here. We don't feel as if we're part of this city. So I knew I had some marching orders from our citizens. And I'm very proud to say that I've started stuff like the Autism Sensory Festival. Thank you, Miss Tanya Newberry, for approaching me that very first spring I was here. And we've had 4 years of putting on that Autism Sensory Festival. We have people that came this past year from 6 counties and 2 states, Tennessee, I believe, and Alabama next door, where we create a safe space for a day for kids who are on the spectrum. And I'm very passionate about that particular initiative. This past year, along with the Parks Department, we started an autism camp that we ran for 4 weeks, and it actually just won an award, and it's up for another statewide award, right? So I'm very proud of that program. And part of the reason why we did this is not only to create a safe space and to provide these services, because the ultimate goal is to have a facility or some facilities in our city that can provide these services for our kids who are on the spectrum, kids and adults. Something else that I'm proud of, we haven't broken ground on this yet, but it's coming. I've worked tirelessly with staff and of course the community when we did this, is that we've allocated $17+ million for a new community center at City Park, which is, by the way, it is almost 14 acres. I know a lot of people think it's a little tiny park, but it's actually bigger than you think. And we're gonna have a swimming pool, we're gonna have some courts, pickleball courts, we're gonna have a new basketball court, an indoor swimming pool, a dog park, some walking trails, and some other amenities. And the reason why that is very important for us as a city and as a district, we don't have a space that we could have meetings in District 4. So that center, when it's built, is going to be the first community center built on the south side in South Fulton County since Welcome Hall was built 30 years ago, right? And that says a lot. And that says this is the reason why we fought to create this city, so we can bring our resources in and improve our communities. Something else that I'm absolutely proud of that we were able to achieve this is that when I got here, there was this burning landfill. A couple of weeks ago, we had groundbreaking because we are doing small industrial park there. The fire has been put out. When I got here, nobody wanted to touch this thing. Everyone was pointing in all sorts of different directions. I eventually got to Congressman Scott's office, And I had a conversation with him. I said, sir, people are dying. And I will never forget the words that he said to me. Council member, I'm going to help you with this because your constituents are my constituents, right? And so he actually brought the players to the table. He brought our city, the district attorney's office, and the EPD, the local EPD folks. And we went to work finally to get this thing, get a hand on this thing. The problem was it was still under the same owner. So I have to go into the media a few times to bring attention to it. And I felt a little bit of a frustration because I didn't think it was moving well enough. And one day I was speaking with our former mayor, Bill Edwards. And I said, he's a District 4 resident and he has kind of helped along the way sometimes in the last 4 years. What I said to him, I probably will be getting arrested this week because I'm going to put on my best suit and I'm going down on the dome and I'm going to sit outside of the governor's office and I'm not going to move until he sees all this land. And the former mayor said, you're not going to have to do that because I can make a call and get your meeting. So we had a meeting. And I had just gotten out of the media again talking about this landfill, myself and Michael Shapey. I showed some of y'all met Michael. And when we had the meeting, I was like, guys, if this was in Sandy Springs or on the north side of town, this wouldn't be happening here. People were dying from this thing. But then after we left that meeting, I had a call from one of our state representatives who said, Councilman, you just left the meeting at the governor's office. They don't want you to talk to the media anymore. Right? And I said, okay, I won't talk to the media anymore, but maybe after a month, 2 months passed, and after 2 months passed, we finally got the news that the land was being sold and EPD had given this company 2 years to clean this property. And when I learned that in the meeting, I said to the new company that that's just not adequate. I knew it was a big job, but I said it's not adequate. If you don't clean this thing up within 6 months, this community is going to come for you again, just like they did the former owner. So you can either be heroes to this community, or you could be another set of villains that we will come for, right? And they were like, Councilmember, they gave us 2 years, but we have no intention of taking 2 years. We're going to do this thing in 6 months. And they actually put the fire out in 6 months. And they started to clean this thing up so we can now repurpose it. And again, I can go on and talk about other initiatives, farmers market, and some other things that I've done around here in the last 4 years. But I'll just pause there for more questions.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas,
Just one question.
come up here to the mic, please. I can't hear you. I want to make sure they see you, so come on. You like TV because you be on the radio, but don't tell me that. Come on. Thank you.
Councilman, how are you tonight?
I'm good, so how are you?
I'm doing good. Sarah, can you give us a little bit more clarification on what's going on with street lights? Not just in District 4, but in the entire city of South Fulton. That is very, very serious. I think I've talked to you about this several times and nothing has been done yet. So if you could just give us a little bit of update,
Yep.
I would appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. So we have been working on a master street lighting plan for the entire city. Part of the challenge that we had, especially out where we are, is the lack of infrastructure. And when we had the presentation to council about a year and a half ago, I had asked council to go back, I had asked staff to go back and do some research as to how we can use solar lighting, right? And so that's one of the things that we're working on. However, we have actually started in certain areas putting in lighting infrastructure. As a matter of fact, at the new roundabout at City Grove Road and Rivertown Road, we are now going to come back and we're going to put some lighting around it.
Right.
I came back home after a business trip a couple months ago. And I was in the back of an Uber, and for the first time, I got to the corner of South Fulton past the Highway 92. And I'm looking at it, and I literally said to the driver, "It's that out here is dark?" Because I'm always driving, and so I always have the light ahead of me. And when I was riding the back of the Uber, and I was standing there, I was like, "Oh my God, this is crazy." Okay, so lighting for our city, listen, we have 90 square mile city. We are on the path of putting a lot of more lighting in place that we need. right? So it has not been forgotten. Dennis. It's just taking a little bit more time.
Thank you for that question. Councilman, I want to ask you, how can you ensure that the city of South Fulton is a priority and not the 7 cities that's been advertising, if you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Sometimes it appears as if we're 7 cities, we're not. Right? Let me just put that to bed. We passed one budget. It may have some little monies in there for some district specific things. But politics is about resources and representation, right? So even in Washington, D.C., there's some struggle and there's some push for people to bring stuff back to their district. We're still one nation, just like so we're one city. And so sometimes we push in directions where we're saying we need something in District 4, or we need something in District 7, or in District 6 or whatever, right? Because the need is there. And at the end of the day, I don't think all these good people from District 4 would like it. All I did was to do stuff for the rest of the city that happens everywhere else, and they have continued to feed themselves. So at the same time, I fought to create this city. I'll continue to look after the best interests of this city. But I have a responsibility to the citizens of District 4, the city that we don't get left out. You know, the reason why I'm here is that a lot of people told me the first few years of cityhood, we didn't feel like we were part. I mentioned that before. We didn't feel as if we were getting in, right? So now we're like, all of these roads are getting paved. We're doing this. We've been in roundabouts and we're building this. And now I'm here and well, you're only looking after District 4. That's not true. You look at the legislation that I've sponsored. Things like project like LIVESTREAM, some of you are familiar with this. That's a citywide initiative that got passed because we had 2 incidents of one kid with autism and one kid, again, I forget what his disability is, but he was lost in the bushes of District 4 for like 12 days, I believe, right? And it so happened that the Sheila man who's here, we were looking for him and we feared the worst. And Sheila, I'm in church one Sunday morning and my phone was ringing. And I'm like, I'll call Sheila back after church. And when I did call her back, she said, oh, Jesse, I found the kid. I saw him on the side of the road. I took the police and went and got him. But then in talking to another mother whose kid was scared out of his wits because he's just a curious little child, right? And he had an encounter with the police. And in talking to her one day, we came up with this idea. She was like, do we tag his shoes with an Apple AirPod thing? And then I said, you know, let me talk to the police. The police went to the police and they said, we're going to do some research. And we came up with this thing. So right now in the city of South Fulton, if you have someone who you're in fear of walking away, whether it's a child or whether it's an adult, right? You can go and register for free with the police department. And they'll give you something that looks like a watch, right? No, you have to have a caretaker with you. It looks like a watch and they can wear that. And it has a 100% success rate, right? And they can find someone within half an hour of them being reported. Something like that. When I sponsored the legislation for the land bank, for instance, it was not just for District 4. Yes, we have a lot of land in District 4, but we have land all over the city that we hopefully would be able to not only buy, but some of it for the future. Things like, you know, I mentioned our budget that we passed. And I mentioned our street lighting plan. I'm talking about now, for example, we've bought over 400 acres of land that we've acquired in the last 2+ years. These aren't lands in District 4. As a matter of fact, there's only one piece that's in District 4, right? But it's all over the city. And as a council member, I work with staff and my colleagues to say, there's a piece of land that's available, we will do that. I fought very hard and I believed in these public safety facilities. They're not in District 4. I went hard for those because I know we needed it. Because fire and police, again, for those of you who are in the room, who might have, you know, Wayne, Damita, and a couple of others, who might have been there during the cityhood movement, we had public safety as the top thing. And now we're in danger of losing some of our officers. Our police headquarters, it's outside of our city. right? We have a responsibility to do that. And then we have our officers, like they're squeezed in these little facilities. And so we're like, no, we have to do it. Our fire, we were training in the Fulton County facilities about 2 months ago. We got kicked out of the facility because someone called the Fulton County folks and they heard that they might have heard a gunshot or something. We had to find some place to relocate our people. So we need to build our own stuff and have our own things that we can make sure our fire and our police are prepared to serve you, to serve us, the citizens, and not just be, hodgepodging and duct taping stuff together. Because guess what? We have the money, we can do it. So we should do it. Those are citywide initiatives. We bought the Fredericks building. Let me see all who have been to the Fredericks building. One, anybody else, y'all should visit the Fredericks building, right? It's a nice facility. That's where our administration back office is. And of course, we have our city hall, again, into a nice space that we can meet until we go to, until we move into wherever we put the permanent city hall. So these are all things that I've worked on and pushed for because they really speak to the best in class city that we talked about when we were creating the city.
Thank you so very much, Councilman. I'm going to ask you one additional question, and then I will turn it back over to our leader, Damita Chatman, who will in turn turn it over to Pastor McNary. I want to ask specifically, what are other things that you will bring to the area, like white linen restaurants, grocery stores, etc., and how will they impact the entire city?
Thank you. I've often told people, if the Lord were to ask me, what is the one thing that you want me to provide for you with support? I would say a large grocery store. Okay. We have the Publix that's across the street here. It's in our city. But last Christmas, for example, I was getting calls constantly. It's taking me half an hour to get out of this parking lot. Right? It's too small. The Publix itself is small. It's not as big as some of the other ones. And beyond that, we're driving to some other city or some other county to get groceries. Right? That's just not good. So I've been pushing on this thing called a grocery store. Right? I told some citizens the other night, part of the issue with development sometimes, you can't speak too soon, right? And sometimes I may sound like a politician when I say it's coming, but that's all I can say. It's coming because you can only speak so much until you have certain things in place. But for that, it will keep our citizens from having to go too far for groceries. We spent over $60 million out of District 4 alone in groceries, right? And they were like, yeah, you can sustain not only one supermarket, but you can probably sustain two. But we'll just start with one in the meantime. But things like restaurants, yes, we need that. We drive far everything in District 4, guys. We know that. I know that. City Grove Village Center, which is going to have over 30,000 square feet of commercial space at the corner of City Grove Road and South Fulton Parkway. We're going through the land disturbance permit process right now, right? And so hopefully that'll be breaking ground in the next few months. It's going to have restaurants, yes. It may have a small grocery store in it. We're not sure yet, but it cannot hold one of the big modern grocery stores. It's not big enough. It is 66 acres and 1/3 of it is going to remain green space, right? Yes, it's going to have some density, but the developer is going to start with building the commercial piece first, because what we have assured them is not only are those things needed, included one of the things that we're looking at is a medical bill. But we have enough consumers around there already, including the Lakes at City Grove, which is the largest subdivision in the city. We have that around there already. We have others, the parts at City Grove. We have the Oaks at City Grove that's being built out. We have City Grove Village. We have Rivertown Mill. We have Creekside that's just up the hill. We have St. Joseph's. So even just along City Grove Road, we have all of these large subdivisions already that people have to drive everywhere. And the thing there is going to pull consumers not only from District 4, but it's going to pull consumers from all around the city, as well as from the other cities around us. So those are some of the things that, again, we need and that we're actually working towards. So hopefully, you always send me back so that I can finish the job that I started.
Thank you so much, Councilman Sebastian, for joining us. I want to inform you all of a few important dates. Advance voting hours and locations. Saturday, November 22nd to Wednesday, November 26th will be the advance voting. Saturday hours will be from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. Sunday from 12 p.m. until 5 p.m. Monday through Wednesday will be from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. And the election day hours are Tuesday, December 2nd is the election day. All cities will be open, all cities with the exception of Atlanta will be open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. This is the city of South Fulton, but just for your records, Atlanta will be open until 8 p.m. Again, Councilman, we want to thank you for joining us this evening for this fireside chat. We appreciate you for taking time out of your schedule to do so. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I'll turn it back over to Damita.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for, so much. Council, and thank you so much. I want to thank the guests for coming. Now it's up to you guys. Again, this will be broadcast live. Everything could go out. I sent it to Sebastian, put it on his page. Thank you. Let me say this. This is what Kathy Adams would say if she was here. Know before you go. Know who is on the ballot. Know your ballot. Know when to vote. Know where to vote. Again, we want to thank you. We want to thank, I call him JC, but I'm gonna call him Councilman. I'm gonna respect that, Councilman. And we're gonna take some pictures before they, but again, I want to thank my husband that's gonna always be there. And when I'm wrong, he gonna tell me. When I'm right. But I know he's gonna be right there. And then I want to thank the man of this house. I'm gonna turn it over to Pastor Chris now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Chatman, and we're thankful again to provide this space for meeting, for this community gathering, for information to flow. We want to thank the councilman again for participating in this event. I want to thank Pastor Flint for moderating with such good ability. And you know, in the Old Testament, in 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 10, is a somewhat familiar passage of scripture. A few years ago, there was a gentleman named Bruce Wilkinson who decided to write a mini book about that passage of scripture. And the scripture really is called the Prayer of Jabez. And he sold so many books around the world just based upon a mini book about that prayer. And then he stopped selling the book. And then he started giving her away and gave away millions of copies of the book. If you're not familiar with it, I want to just share briefly that one verse, and then I want to pray. And Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, "Oh, that thou wouldest bless me indeed, and enlarge my coast, and that thine hand might be with me, and thou shouldest keep me from evil, that it may not grieve me." And here's the kicker to the whole thing. That was his prayer. The scripture ends by saying, and God gave him what he requested. Bless me, expand my influence. May I have your affirmation, and then keep me from evil. Wow. That's our prayer for the sitting public officials. That's our prayer for those that will be coming in, and for the current councilman that's in the position for this runoff election. whoever you so choose, we pray that God will bless them, even as Jabez prayed. Father, we just thank you again for this evening. We thank you for traveling mercies and grace for those that have come to this location and for what they've heard, that they'll be able to internalize it, that they would be able, dear God, to process all of what they've taken in, and they will use wisdom in making their electoral decisions. Father, I pray for their traveling grace and mercy, even as they return to their domiciles. And then, Father, we just thank you for the participation in this process. In Jesus' name, amen.
And still. Oh, God.